Hello and welcome to JBCTR on tour. Now today I've got a 2.3 EcoBoost Mustang and I'm looking to see if the little EcoBoost engine can really match that V8. Now, unfortunately, due to slight travel restrictions, I have been unable to transport my tripod out here. But thankfully, I've got my glamorous assistant, Amy, who's agreed to hold the camera for me today. So, cheers, Amy. But today, as I said in my intro, we're going to be looking to see if that little 2.3 EcoBoost can really replace that V8 that really should be in here. Now, this particular example is really quite ropey. It's got 46,000 miles on the clock. It's about 2 years old, and it's had a very, very hard life. Let me show you. So we'll start around the back here. As per usual, as hire car, you've got this horrendous damage from luggage going in and out of the boot. Both rear wheels have very slow punctures, which is not really any surprise given it's a Mustang and a hire car. And yeah, so we've been doing daily trips to the gas station to ensure these are pumped up and remain pumped up for the duration of the day, which is a little bit annoying, but I kind of understand it. Now, if I start the engine to put the old roof up, I'll show you my next issue. Bear with. Right, simply shut it using this little handle here. Easy as that. And then we put the windows up. So I'll shut the door, put the windows up, and then we have this slight issue over here. So if I get out, it's probably easier to show you. Now, as you can see here, the window doesn't shut. Now, this isn't a problem with the window, that's a problem with the roof not being aligned, and because hire car, I don't think they care. So let's just hope it doesn't rain. At the front, the headlights literally seem to be pointing directly at the floor, and on this US spec Mustang there is no way to adjust them from the interior of the car, only under the bonnet with tools, which I've not got. So we've just tried to not drive at night, really. And lastly, an upgrade that I've added, some freshly blurred number plates, because I don't want you guys finding out who hired this car, because it's an absolute rotter. But because of that, I think it actually shows just how well this car can put up with some serious abuse. So let's get into actually road testing this thing.
When we were younger, we used to sit on the grass and go, damn, I don't wanna grow old. Stay up all night singing songs on the terrace. We didn't mind sitting out in the cold. It wasn't possible to make us embarrassed. We were free.
Okay, so as we are on a rather boring road, I thought this was a good opportunity to talk to you guys about what's going on in here. So if we cover off the touch points first, obviously the biggest is the steering wheel. Actually in diameter it feels quite large. To look at, there's loads of buttons. You've got a selection of buttons to control the menus on the screen. You've got a selection of buttons for infotainment, your cruise control, phone, all that stuff. But the fact that they're all there laid out actually makes the wheel look quite nice. In fact, the perimeter of the wheel, this bit around here, is actually quite thin for the size of the wheel, which means it's, I don't know, it feels almost delicate to hold. It's quite nice. Unfortunately, it's clad in this rather cheap feeling leather, which on this particular car was really, really sticky when we got it. So, but even after a clean, it still feels a little sticky. Seats, actually very impressed with these seats. So they're obviously black leather, both heated and cooled. The heating element on level 3 is seriously hot, if I'm honest. The cooling is actually also quite good. Works by pumping what feels like air-conditioned air through tiny little holes up your bum. But actually it feels weirdly quite nice. They're also electrically adjustable, and actually it all works quite well. There's only one slight niggle for any of you shorter people out there that Amy found earlier. But aside from that, they're actually more body hugging than I thought, and they're really quite a comfy place to be. The gear lever, obviously it's an automatic, you don't touch it too much, but the button on top is really quite easy to use, and the handbrake is nice and chunky and actually works, which is quite good for a Ford. Now, as I am on a rather boring road, I've just put the car into normal mode to save a bit of fuel, and it's in auto. The car is just basically driving itself, which means you as the driver are free to do whatever you like. I mean, you can watch movies on your iPad, play with your phone, whatever. I mean, I'm joking, although if you looked around the roads here in America, you'd think it was perfectly legal, as every driver on the road seems to have something far better to do than actually driving the car. But that said, the auto box in normal mode is okay. As you'd expect, it tries to keep the revs down as low as possible, and it works all right. The only thing I would say that is my slight complaint would be the fact that it seems to load the engine a little bit more than I'd like, especially when you move on to an incline. It really wants to load the engine as much as possible before changing down. But I guess that's just a preference thing.
I don't wanna get too close. I don't wanna lose control. I don't wanna overdose on you. Maybe we can stay this way. Try to keep our feelings safe. I don't wanna lie today.
Now, for this section of the review, I thought I'd put the top down, and I'm gonna be honest, this whole review is going to be full of continuity errors because I've just filmed it whilst on holiday and sort of enjoying myself, to be honest. So as you can see, different top, roof down, whatever. But the purpose of having the roof down whilst we review I'll show you the sport mode kind of side of life, is so that you can hear that exhaust note, or lack of. In fact, you kind of get a lot of turbo-y kind of sounds instead, which seems a bit unnatural in a Mustang, but you know, they sound okay. So in this car, you've kind of got two ways of putting it into sport mode. So on the gear stick itself, you can knock it down from normal to sport, and then that obviously naturally keeps the revs at a higher level, and it also seems to be more attuned to your actual inputs on the old steering wheel. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that back into drive again, and then down here you've also got mode selection, and then there's loads of different modes. You've got normal, you've got sport plus now, which again keeps the car pretty much in automatic, but the gearbox will naturally try and keep those revs higher than normal, and I actually find it a lot easier to drive like this because it doesn't load the engine like it does in normal mode. In terms of other modes, I mean, you can just flick through. You've got Sport Plus track, not really sure what track does, probably disable traction control like it does in my Fiesta. Drag strip, again, haven't had a chance to play with it, not sure. Snow and wet probably makes it better in snow and wet, I'm guessing, but it's really sunny, so I don't know. But yeah, Sport Plus, let's leave it in that. Now, I have played a lot with Sport Plus when we were driving around some really fun roads up the coast on the Pacific Highway, and it was really, really fun. The only thing I would say is downshifts, especially in this mode, when under hard braking, are really, really quite jerky. Upshifts when on the power, again, can be pretty jerky. But yeah, I've got a car in front of me at the moment, so let me just slow down a little bit to get some space. But one thing I would say is the paddles, they don't really respond to your inputs particularly well. Maybe a brief second, and really jolty, and then you can have a bit of fun. But yeah, I mean, it responds quick enough for you to enjoy it, but I guess the whole purpose of this car really is just for cruising. But for cruising, you stick it in normal, and yeah, it's quite a pleasant place to be. So that is my review of sport mode. Enough to have a bit of fun, but not that intelligent, but it does the job. So handling. Now handling's a big one for this Mustang because this is the first Mustang where they've really, really concentrated on the handling. Now it's got an independent rear axle, which goes a very long way towards like kind of really giving you a bit of feedback from the rear end, although if I'm honest, it's still not quite as much. Sorry, I'm sort of enjoying myself. The front axle is, you can kind of get quite a bit of feedback through the steering wheel, or more so than I thought you would do on this style of car. I kind of guess I've been spoiled with my Fiesta because you get everything back through the steering wheel, but this, you get enough to kind of get the gist of what's going on up front, but not everything. But that said, it's more than enough for a car like this, and it's certainly enough to have a bit of fun on some back lanes. And finally, the view from the driver's seat is phenomenal, and one of the reasons why you'd buy a Mustang. You look out across this expanse of bonnet in front of you, and it's just like, yeah, Mustang. It's so cool. It's just like a constant view, and it's like, this is awesome. So after all that hooning around mountain roads and coastal roads, I wanted to pull over and talk to you where I can sort of concentrate a bit more about some facts, figures that you want to know about the car, and also a few things that have surprised me about it. Now, the first thing that is really quite notable with the convertible version is the chassis. Now, for a convertible, this particular model seems to be really quite sturdy. My comparison is based against the Camaro, which is a car that I rented when we went from the Las Vegas to the Grand Canyon last year. And all I can remember of that car is A, being able to see the windscreen going like this as you went over some bumps, which is really unnerving. And also a feeling of going into a corner in a canyon with a big drop and then being like, oh man, am I going to come out the other end? But with that, there's absolutely none of this with the new Mustang. They've done a really good job on the chassis. In terms of facts and figures, fuel consumption, not brilliant on the EcoBoost. I've averaged 22 mpg over 500 miles on this journey. Worth bearing in mind that's US mpg, which I believe is around about 26 UK mpg. Facts and figures, 0 to 60, everyone likes a 0 to 60. I have my Draggy with me, so I've done a couple of 0 to 60s. The best I could achieve was about a 6.7. I'll put it on the screen now. That's with a downhill gradient, making it invalid on the Draggy app, with 2 passengers, 40 kilos of luggage, and some really, really rubbish American fuel. 87 RON to be precise. But that said, it's still, you know, a second off what the manufacturer quotes in like perfect conditions. So it's not too bad, even when running crap fuel. Oh, and one last thing that is slightly amusing about this particular car. Oh, look at the state of that bonnet. Oh man, I mean, if anything goes to show this is an uncared for car, I mean, 40,000 miles. Ugh. And before I go, I'll give you one last continuity error. So there we have it. There are my thoughts on the 2.3 EcoBoost Mustang. Can it replace the V8? Well, actually, I think it possibly can do. The way it propels the Mustang is really good. It buzzes along quite nicely. But there is one thing it's lacking. And well, the easiest way to explain it is for me to show you. So take this clip of this Mustang going past as normal. And now if we dub the sound of a V8 over the same clip, it becomes a completely different car. Now, I know for many of you that will be a massive, massive deal breaker, and even for me, I think it would be. So there we have it. The EcoBoost is sensible. The MPG is not brilliant, but it is better than the V8. But it is lacking that amazing sound. So yeah, I'll leave it up to you. So with that, if you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of me, my Fiesta and other car content such as this, then feel free to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.
There goes a sight from my soul.